What's up, guys? It's the DeFi Dentist, and I'm back with another video. It's Q4 of this year, 2024. We're on the brink of another election. We haven't even seen the October surprise yet. And I just wanted to get on and just talk about investing, politics, life, and just kind of what's top of mind for me right now, which is making good decisions in the midst of all of this chaos, all of this fast-moving news cycle, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of macro kind of big ticket items that are coming down the pipe, like the interest rate cuts that are coming up on Wednesday. And how much are they going to be? How is this going to affect the economy? What's this going to do to the stock market? Taking a look at crypto with the ETH BTC ratio, like how is that doing? Not forgetting that the little guys can innovate and kind of outperform everything if you're dialed into what's going on. I'm also thinking about polling and kind of how that looks and what's really going on. This is one of those election cycles that have really taught me that you really have to be careful to not just accept everything that you're hearing. It's really wild that the ability that I feel like the system, I know that's a big word and it encompasses a lot of things, but I feel like the system just has this insane ability to control narratives and gaslight you to where you're like, what? How is this possible? How is this happening? I've been feeling a lot of that lately and just controlling the emotion and not allowing that to change the strategy and just staying focused on what I've been thinking about all year, which was quite frankly, just to like bow out of this year and say, look, I'm just going to disappear, rest, really stay focused on creating opportunity within the things that I can control and not really get too caught up with politics and, things that are really not within my wheelhouse or things that, I can't control really. But it has got me thinking a lot as I've paid attention to what's going on, man. It is absolutely wild what I think we tolerate as human beings from our politicians, from leaders, and how dangerous it is to not get involved and not at least in your mind think through what you want and moving in that direction, hoping that, someone else is going to think about what you need and give you what you need. It just will never happen. It's wild to think about just where the world has come. And maybe I just sound like I'm getting old, but I don't know. Like I do feel like I'm trying to ingest as much information as possible and really stay in tune to what's real. I don't want to join a religion of this belief or that belief, but man, it's really like scam season. It almost feels like people are willing to say anything and do anything. And it's bad. It's bad. I'm glad I slept most of the year because I could probably handle a few more months of this just until this election wraps up. But other than that, I couldn't do this long term. And for those that get involved in politics online and otherwise all throughout the years, I mean, good for you. It's just not something I can participate in. I would much rather be an entrepreneur. I'd much rather be an investor and just pay attention for the sake of making moves and not pay attention for the sake of winning arguments. Winning arguments is a complete waste of time, especially with people online. There's no point. You will get caught up in a bunch of nonsense that goes nowhere. And quite frankly, like the people who want to argue, they almost don't even really care either. It's really just entertainment at the end of the day. So let's go through a few things that I think are relevant, that I think would be interesting to study. But going back to just some tried, tested, and true wisdom about handling emotion, let's go to Charlie Munger for a minute. So here's a little bit of wisdom that I've been trying to incorporate this year, and just to help me think through, just to help me handle being in emotional environments with a lot of information flowing at you at the same time, I think it's really critical to have some sort of anchor thought. This one's from Charlie Munger, and he says, "You don't have to be brilliant, only a bit wiser than the other guys on average for a long, long time." And, for the most part, I would say majority of people that you are going to be in competition with or dealing with are not reading above average than everyone else. They're not consuming information and really consuming it with the intention to learn. They're consuming it with the intention to be entertained. So if you can just be a little bit wiser and choose your sources carefully, and then be a bit more of a critic of the stuff that you read, and do that consistently, you'll be fine. And then the second piece of wisdom comes from Naval Ravikant, and he says, even today, what to study and how to study is more important than where to study it and for how long. The best teachers are on the internet. The best books are on the internet. The best peers are on the internet. The tools for learning are abundant. It is the desire to learn that is scarce. So again, connecting it to the last one, being a bit wiser, you just have to be willing to learn more than the next person, and you're going to be in a good place. I think that's why I like making these videos. It really helps me track my thoughts over time and what I've learned, because I'm able to look back at 2016, 2017 and what I was talking about then and really gauge, was my judgment on? Was I talking about things that were relevant? Is what I talked about still here today? So once again, I'm doing this with the decisions that I'm making right now so that 5 years from now, I can look back and say, yeah, you did call that right. Oh, okay, you were focused on the right things. So let's get into a few things that I think are important for me to consider moving forward into this fourth quarter. And we'll just switch screens here real quick. But the first one is fairly obvious. And we'll just talk a little bit about the Fed rate decision that's about to rock the market. So it's been 54 months since March 2020 when the Fed started cutting, or since the Fed actually cut rates. Okay, so remember the COVID crash. The Fed cut rates pretty aggressively. And on Wednesday of this week, we are going to see whether or not the Fed will cut 25 points, 50, or 75. I believe there's a lot of, Democrat senators are calling for 75 basis points. And depending on which one they choose, aggressively cutting right off the bat or slowly could really mark a bit of an indicator of how well they think the economy is doing. So this is why I'm watching this closely, because you could even look at historical data and say, okay, if they cut by 25 points, what happened to the stock market after that? If they cut by 50, what happened to the stock market after that on average in previous cutting cycles for interest rates? So that's the first thing I'm thinking about, is what's going to happen this Wednesday and how might that play out? Now, nothing's ever a guarantee. Anything can happen, really. But the past can sometimes rhyme with the present, and it's good to kind of anticipate that. So that's why I'm looking at this man right here and trying to gauge, what is he going to do? It's a bigger deal than you think, because if you look at these market cycles, a lot of it just revolves around whatever the Federal Reserve is going to do. And the reason it does that is because that's often correlated with the global liquidity cycle, or this chart called M2, so the money supply. Because once they start opening up more supply, I'll just open that up for you. Money supply chart. Okay, so what this shows is that the government's been printing money for a long time. And so I think it was 2008. Yeah, right here. So there was a consistent money printing, and over the last, 2022 to today. Yeah. this is one of the first times in crypto history where we existed in a high interest rate environment and an environment where they were cutting back on the money printing. So I think that's why these last couple of years have felt kind of different, because it actually was. Bitcoin started in 2009, and ever since it's just been nothing but up. That's significant because it's the same thing that's been happening with assets over time. They've been going up. Look at the stock market, look at housing prices, look at gold prices. Everything's been going up. But is everything going up, or is the dollar just continuing to lose value? And that's sort of the question you got to keep asking yourself over and over again, is like, what does this really mean? It may not mean what you think, okay? The value of your house may not be getting more valuable. The dollars that try to purchase your house may be the ones getting less valuable, okay? So that's why I tend to look at these kinds of things and just kind of think about it. We'll see what he does. Here's another one. So Nate Silver, he has some great books on making bets. He does his market predictions for polling for the election, and he has it here. Currently, Harris is up. Okay. Now, this is where, again, I have to suspend my belief and maybe just rethink where my head's at, because if I'm going to be honest with myself, this is a bit of a surprise, because she is not the strongest candidate compared to Donald Trump. Donald Trump right now is sort of like the strongest Republican candidate I think we've seen in a long time. And seeing Kamala Harris, who is not, poll so well, probably speaks more to the power of the system, the Democratic Party, and their network that makes up their system of support. It probably speaks more to the strength of that than it does the candidate itself. Because I was thinking about it today. If they had chosen Gavin Newsom, right, governor of California, I think he would be dominating Trump right now. Like you just put a great candidate from the Democrats and you put that candidate into the party and have the backing of the machine of, institutional support, media support, polling support. I mean, I think he could easily beat Trump. But they threw up, in my opinion, not really the strongest candidate. And just look at this polling. I mean, this is what, and now remember, Nate Silver actually takes a bunch of polls and then he puts it through his sort of analysis. It's like a conglomerate of a bunch of polls, but he has Harris actually, beating Donald Trump currently. So, we'll see. I don't know. But it's interesting to look at this kind of stuff and really ask myself the honest questions like, is this really where it's going to go? Now, I think regardless of who gets in, we're going to start seeing even more money printing. We're going to see cutting of interest rates. We're going to see an economic boom before another big crash. Just got to pay attention and see what you think. All right. So continuing on, I kind of go through these things over and over again because, again, these are big macro things that I think matter right now. To pay attention to these shifts in the macro environment in order to decide how you're going to move in the future. Now, I only make a handful of moves a year. So for me, it's more important to understand before I make a big move. But these are some of the things I'm looking at right now. Okay. Next, I'm going to go through 3 DeFi projects that I think are worth looking at right now. So I don't usually do this kind of stuff. And by the way, this is not financial advice. It's just this is what I'm into. This is what DeFi is. And I'm going to be more specific moving into this remainder of the bull market, which I think may only last maybe another 8 to 12 months, something like that. Maybe longer. Could be delayed because they really delayed cutting interest rates for such a long time. But there's 3 that I have my eyes on right now. So I'll just kind of show you. But before I do, I'll just kind of show you the first thing that you should be thinking about, which is go to CoinMarketCap and just ask yourself, Am I good with my position in Bitcoin? Am I good with my position in Ethereum? These are the blue chips. You should at least have some of these. I'm just gonna say you should be building a portfolio, not just having speculative, not just holding the highest speculation tokens out there. Have some Bitcoin, have some Ethereum. But once you have what you're happy with, then you get to go deeper into CoinMarketCap to where us Deegans play. And this is where you can really get some monster gains. At the end of the day, we're all just trying to get more Ethereum, more Bitcoin, but all these other tokens that I'm scrolling down on, they act as leverage on Bitcoin and Ethereum, specifically more Ethereum. And so let's just look at the Ethereum BTC chart. So when I go through this, I'm looking at this going, okay, personally, I actually thought Ethereum would be higher at this point because, you know, the ecosystem of Ethereum is strong. It's a very robust ecosystem. They have a ton of developers. There's a lot of people involved in it, but it's really been underperforming. Vitalik's been selling, and you know, we're just gonna have to wait and see. It looks like it's falling into this descending wedge pattern, which means it could pop later on. Let's see, yeah, next year heading into the spring. So I mean, there's no rush. This still times well with the typical 4-year cycle that we have in crypto. But just something to watch is this ratio, because this ratio kind of indicates when people kind of start rotating their profits in Bitcoin into Ethereum and then from Ethereum into altcoins. So that's the first thing that I'm looking at, is just that ratio there. One of the DeFi projects I'm actually looking at right now is called TitanX. So I actually really like this here. This is sort of an offshoot of some other projects, but essentially what you do is you mine the currency itself, and there's a return on investment. So let me just move this a little bit here. Let's see if you can see that. There you go. So you're mining, as it shows here, you're putting in money, and then you're creating, or you're minting the currency TitanX, and you use Ethereum to get it. This started last year. So I've been doing it for a while. I've accumulated a lot of this stuff. And if I was to start one today and max out the time to create it, then I would still be at the end, have a negative 38% ROI. Now you're probably sitting there going, oh, why would you do it then? Well, because the ones I did last year, for over 200 days are up almost 200%. That's why. So if you can get your brain wrapped around how these things work, it's quite powerful, especially if you're dealing with, 5 figures worth of investment. Like, some of this stuff can really compound quick. But they have a new protocol coming through soon. I'm just on TitanX Hub, and you can kind of see this for a second. So there's a bunch of projects that have launched on this platform, and they range from TitanX, DragonX, Hyper. These top 3 here are really the ones that have been driving the ecosystem. I first thought that DragonX was like a bully contract, and then it dawned on me like, oh, it's just speeding up the inevitable shift in economic energy so that we can get through the hyperinflation and get to a deflationary state. So I like DragonX. I had some good returns in that. And now I'm looking at this next one down here called Hydra. So Hydra is the one that I'm sort of keeping an eye on. It should be launching. It's imminent, like it's coming soon. But you will need TitanX to mint Hydra, to mine Hydra. So this is different than TitanX, because TitanX needs Ethereum to mine, and then Hydra will require TitanX to mint or mine Hydra. And then it goes through this like system of buying and burning. and then sending back rewards to the community. It's actually pretty cool if you just look into it. It's a little bit of a complex web of processes, but in the end, the whole goal is to make Titan X currency deflationary. And so this is a really cool project. I'm not going to explain the whole thing to you guys. I'm just showing you what I'm looking at right now, what I'm in. Here's the next one. Ulti.org, the ultimate DeFi asset. So this one's actually got me pretty excited because it was actually one of the original developers of Staker app. And he's created his own project called ULTI, Ultimate DeFi Asset. Now, it hasn't launched yet, right? And so we still have to take a look at how this thing works. They have a white paper, but it's kind of thin on the details. But like any investment, a big part of why you're going to do it has to do with people. And this dude has been solid. He's been smart about how he's built projects. He's got a great sense for software, a great sense for how to get people engaged. And I think he learned a lot from making Staker app, which is still available on the web version, that he's now going to be applying that knowledge to this. And I would say when you have a really successful first app, but you learn a lot along the way, I think you're just battle hardened and ready to do it again. And that's why I'm excited for his project. So it's got all the things that I like. I know he's going to get it audited. I know he's going to have a fair launch. And that's really important in DeFi because a lot of the times you're buying tokens after VCs have already bought and after exchanges have already bought. And they're basically trying to hype you up so that you'll buy what they're about to sell in the bull market. So part of me really just likes startups too. So if I was, managing a bit portfolio of investment dollars, I would actually go to startups because you can get compounding value. I probably wouldn't go into blue chip stuff. I'd go into more speculative assets because I'm more of a risk taker. I like growing capital. I'll get into the boring stuff later. So this one I think will be a fun one to get into. So ULTI, check it out, ulti.org. It's launching soon. You can participate in sort of the beta testing of it, and there'll be a lot of value there that I think will be built because there's a big community, a thriving community that's kind of looking at it as well. And the third one, this one is still one of my favorites. It's the Pulse chain ecosystem. So I'm talking Pulse, PulseX, Incentive Token, and Hex. And yes, I know some of you guys are like, Hex? Why would you admit? Look, guys, I'm already winning with it. I don't need to explain this to you, but I will tell you this. Like anything in life, you want to go where the commitment is strong. You want to go to where there's true believers. You can't last in any company unless you have true believers. And Hex has some of the strongest true believers I've ever seen. And those same Hexicans are now the ones holding the bags for Pulse Chain. And Richard Hart's lawsuit, it's coming up on October, sometime in October. So once that ruling's there, it's like they're free and clear to just move forward and get it done. And it's going to be hopefully before the bull run. So we'll see what happens in October, but it's coming up in a couple weeks, right? Like if you are going to bet on communities, bet on strong communities that are loud and ferocious and almost religious in their approach. Because if you don't, and you get into these celebrity meme coins like the Andrew Tate one or the Iggy Azalea one or the Kim Kardashian one, those have always gone down 99% after and stayed there. Like they never ever came back because the communities are fickle. They're only there for the celebrity status. They actually don't care about this stuff. So you want to be in a community that cares, that's going to stick around. You also want to be in projects that are decentralized, like actually decentralized, that they don't have a bunch of token unlocks. They don't have some backroom deals where they sell it over the counter with, centralized exchanges. You don't want a bunch of, a small amount of community distribution, and then you have a bunch of investor distributions, basically shadow investors that are just trying to hype you up so that they can dump on your heads. There's a lot that really goes into understanding like what that means. But really all you need to know is go where the people are, go where the people are and get in early. That's the key in any of these DeFi projects. And so it's a pretty robust community too. I mean, they're launching a ton of tokens on this platform and just the energy is high. So I think that kind of wraps up what I wanted to, is just to, share with you guys some thoughts around what I think is coming, how I'm preparing, what's important to think about, the big macro items that are top of mind in Q4 of 2024. I mean, regardless of what happens, you got to admit this year has been wild. It's just stressing everybody out. And you really you got to admit, this has been one of the most long and drawn out recoveries in recent history. I mean, immigration is stressing people out, the economy, inflation, just this election. I mean, everything is the stress is high. But remember, after the storm, there's always going to be some calm and there's always going to be some peace. It will pass. And when it passes, you better hope you got into something good, because there is going to be a period of time where things will grow, things will feel good, and things will go up. So just a little bit of a primer on where I'm getting prepared. And I hope you guys benefit from just hearing these thoughts. At the end of the day, I know I'm still going to work as a dentist. I'm still focused on building up my practice and taking care of patients. But, there are opportunities right now for you to get involved and really find these opportunities now before they start printing the dollars again. So I'll leave you guys on that thought, and I hope you have a great night. DeFi Dentist, peace.